Please give a warm welcome to Steli Efti. Later. Hit him with the later.
So Dave was just asking me, Steli, are you still going to talk about books? I'm like, no. My new topic today is going to be how later is much better than now. Because if you think about it, your future is later, right? No, unfortunately, I'm still going to talk about how reading books changed my life. Boom. All right, so first of all, let me say thank you. And find the direction of the clicker. So it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. Boom! This is the direction I'm going to be clicking at. All right, very good. So first of all, thank you so much. I truly believe that appreciation is the currency we pay the universe with. And I want to thank the Trip team for organizing an amazing event, for you guys for coming and giving me your attention, your time today, and for me being able to speak about something that I usually never speak about, which is my deep-rooted love for books and how books saved my life. So, first of all, raise your hand really high if you have no idea who I am, you've never heard of me before. Just really, really high and really proud. Okay. This hurts, but it's really healthy for my ego. All right, so you people have no clue who the hell I am. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the professional intro, but then we're going to go into my life story, and a part of my life story that I never share on stage usually. All right, so my name is Steli Efti. I run a company today that's called Close.io. It's an inside sales CRM that helps salespeople be a lot more productive, close more deals, make more sales. I also have a podcast with the one and only Heaton Shah that's called The Startup Chat. Who here knows who Heaton Shah is? Raise your hand if you know who he is. I'm going to divide this by two and tell them the crowd was much smaller that raised their hand. You saw him earlier in the panel. So the two of us have a podcast that a lot of people appreciate, not many of you, apparently, but some people really like it, The Startup Chat. But I don't just run companies and do a podcast. I also launch really pretty little cute boys. To be fair, it was really my co-founder, my wife, that did most of the development and launching. I was more in a support role. But I thought that I would start my talk today with my oldest favorite quote about books, which is a Groucho Marx quote. Outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read. He thinks this is hilarious, right? He just can't help himself. Thinks it's so funny. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my life story and how reading books truly saved my life. So I'm originally from Greece, born and raised in the south of Germany, come from an immigrant factory worker family, and nobody in my family ever received a higher education. And it was important to me to keep this family tradition alive. I hated school with a passion. I hated every single moment of school. And in a very young age, I decided that if school is where you go to learn, I probably also hate learning. Because this stuff sucks so much. I hate it so much here. So most of my youth, I spent all my time, watching an incredible amount of television, just an insane, an inhumane amount of television, and then going out and getting into trouble with other kids. That's pretty much my entire life from the age of 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, all the way up to 16. All I did was watch television, then go out and get into fights and get into trouble with other kids. And, funny enough, or thankfully, gratefully enough, when school teachers told me from a really young age that I would never amount to anything, when an authority figure like that tells you something like this, and you're like 6, 7 years old, there's only one or two ways that you can go. Either you'll believe it, you'll accept it, which can have a tremendous impact on your life. Right now, this idea has become self-belief, and very likely you're going to act it out and you will make it a reality, or you rebel against it and you think, you know what, screw you, you're wrong. I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it to you. And thankfully, my disposition, my DNA, my character was one that was like, screw all of you people, I'm going to show you, I'm going to be amazing one day. So I lived up to 16 not reading a single book. Like my school day looked like this. I would go to school with an empty bag. Then before every class, I would ask somebody to give me a book. I would ask somebody else to give me a piece of paper and ask somebody to give me a pen. Like just borrowing, just in time, on demand resource building. And then I would just pretend to be there and paying attention. At the end of the class, throw away the paper, give back the book and the pen. So I would be very lean. It was very lean. I would come, with zero baggage in my bag, just travel very quick and very fast. But I never learned anything, never read anything, was not interested in anything. But again, my self-belief was that one day I'll figure something out and I'm going to be great. I'm going to be amazing. So when I was 16, I have two older brothers. Both of them buff guys at the time, working as bouncers in clubs. And one of them and I, we had a big argument, a huge argument. And looking back, that argument truly changed my life and my life trajectory forever. And the argument was about success in life. And my brother's harmless, but he was watching a lot of television as well. So we were arguing about success. In our limited mind, success back at that time meant money because we didn't have any money, right? I come from a pretty poor background. My mom was my hero, raised 3 boys on her own, working in a factory. My dad died when I was 6. We got kicked out of the house. We were public housing. She went to school for 2 grades, first and second class. And she moved to Germany when she was 12, starting as a factory worker, at the age of 12. Think about that. She just retired a month ago at the age of 63. She's an amazing woman. Anyways, so we had this big argument about success and money. And his point of the argument was to be successful in life, you have 2 paths. You're either going to be academically successful, make a shit ton of money, become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, or you have to be a criminal kingpin. Sell drugs or something like that. He just watched too many movies, Scarface, The Godfather, very limited information in his head. He's a family father and a good citizen today. But his point was like, either you're going to sell some drugs and make some money, or you're going to have to be a doctor. Like, just take your choice if you think you're going to be rich one day. And I didn't like any of these 2 options, right? So I was pushing back, and we were arguing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And at some point, he looked at me and he said, all right, smart ass, what's your plan for success? What exactly are you going to do? And I opened my mouth, and no words came out. And that was the end of it. He won the argument. And that was the moment I realized how clueless I was. That was the moment where I could not look in the mirror anymore and go, one day I'll figure it out. I'm going to be super wealthy. I don't know what, but I'm going to make it happen. That was the moment where I realized, shit, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to be successful? How am I going to make money? And since up to that point, most of my education came from television, I remembered a movie called Wall Street. And I was like, stocks. I saw that movie. People did something with stocks and they made a ton of money. And I was like, I don't know. I had no clue what stocks are. I didn't know I don't know, this is the weight of cows or something. I didn't know any relationship of what this was, but I knew some people made a lot of money. I saw it in a movie. So I was like, I probably should learn more about stocks. Maybe there's going to be an answer there. And I was like, wait, where do I get answers about things? We didn't have a computer back then. We didn't have internet or anything. So I was like, you know what? People have told me books are a place where you can learn things. So I decided to buy my very first book about stocks. And here's the deal. I'm 16 years old. I've never read a book in my life. I stand in front of our local bookstore, and it took me over an hour to get the courage to walk in. I mean, it's insane. I was truly terrified from walking into a bookstore. This seems very hard to relate. A lot of you people are really, really smart, very well educated. But for me, a bookstore was this kind of place where I was imagining, I'm going to walk in there. They're going to have like a little alarm door that's going to scan me and know how dumb I am. And everybody's going to turn around laughing at me like, ha, this is a guy that has never read a book in his life, right? I thought that everybody would instantly notice that I'm dumb and don't know anything about books or bookstores, right? I didn't know how this works. Maybe there's alligators there, maybe it's dangerous. I didn't know. It took me a lot of courage to go in there, and I walked in there, no eye contact, just don't talk to me, just trying to find the corner with the books about business or stocks. And I picked up the cheapest book that they had about stocks for $9.99. Everything you need to know about stocks, right? Very simple-minded. I'm 16 years old. I don't know anything. Seemed like the right book. Seemed like the right price. I didn't have much money. So I buy the book, and I'm hiding it on the way home because I don't want any kid who knows me to see I'm walking around with a book, right? That would be an instant ass beating for me. That would mean instantly I had to fight somebody. And I didn't want, when I came home, my brothers to know I'm reading a book, right? That would make me kind of an easy target for a lot of attacks. So I was reading the book when nobody was around. And the book was written for somebody that is $9.99 for a book about stocks, right? Very, very simple concepts, lots of pictures, simple language. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I was reading that book, and everything changed. Like I went up to the clouds, parted the clouds, taught the birds how to fly. I was so excited. I was so amazed. I remember, like today, standing in the kitchen and just screaming at my mom while she's trying to cook. Mom, you don't understand stocks. We have to invest in stocks. That's how people get rich. We need to tell everybody in our neighborhood, like the poor stay poor because we don't invest in stocks. I was like so passionate about this secret knowledge that I just acquired reading a book, for $9.99 about stocks. Everything changed in that moment. Everything. I was so excited. And I was like, I need to know more. So I went back to the bookstore and I bought another book. And then I went back and I bought another book. And I started to fall deeply in love with reading and books. And slowly but surely, there was a disconnection between my experience in school and how much I love to learn. And it's funny today, I had to think a lot about this. It's funny today because I remember, I think the third or fourth book I ever bought was a book about Silicon Valley. And get this, I didn't buy it because I was interested in Silicon Valley. I bought it because it was the only book I could afford out of the options that were available there. And I was like, it's in the business section. I don't know. And I was in that phase where just buying it made me feel better about myself and my future. Just buying books, the moment I bought it, there was like endorphins flying all around my body. I'm like, oh my God, I can feel the success, already happening. I was just like excited about buying books. And I bought this and I was like, this will suck, but maybe it'll help. And I read the book, and I still remember, at the end of the book, I was like, did I learn anything here? Not really. Like, the most exciting thing I learned in the entire fucking book was that IBM stood for International Business Machines. I was like, IBM? This is just, abbreviation for, wow, I didn't never realize that. That was my takeaway from the whole thing. The other takeaway, the other funny fact was that everything I read there was like reading about another civilization that lived on Mars. It was so far away from me, you cannot even imagine. Nothing in there. No story about these people that were technology geniuses, building companies, inventing things that revolutionized industries and built billion-dollar. All that in the US and America. Like I was in a small village in Germany, immigrant kid, factory worker, no money. All those stories were completely unrelatable. All these stories seemed like these, astronauts doing all these magical things, had nothing to do with me. And it's funny today to be in Silicon Valley, be in the Bay Area. I've now lived here for 12 years. And to be even on stage talking about my love for books, it's a trip, I'm telling you. Anyway, so I read a ton of books. And at some point, I got to learn more about business. Not just stocks. I went from stocks to businesses. And for a short period of time, I was thinking, maybe I should be the CEO. I was reading all these CEO business, Jack Welch, how to be a manager books. And I was like, maybe I should be a CEO of a conglomerate around the world. And then I remember looking at the DAX 50, or whatever the biggest 50 companies in Germany, and I looked at all the names of the CEOs. Now, one thing I didn't realize, I'm 16 years old, but all of them were male back then. But also, they were all Germans. It's not a single person with a funky name like mine in there. So at that moment, I was like, nope, that's not going to work. This is not really a viable option for me. Let me put this aside. And then I learned about entrepreneurship. And that was it. That was my path. I realized, wait a second. Anybody can start a business? Like just anybody? There's no age restriction. I don't need a certificate. I don't need a diploma. I could just start a business. And the size and success of the business, there's no limitations to that. I don't need approval. I don't need a German name. I don't need to look a certain way. All I need to do is work really hard and create a ton of value. I can make this as big and as successful as I'm willing to make it happen. I was like, all right, that's it. That is going to be my path. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It's around the time I was 17, 18, so I dropped out of school, obviously, because I'd read, 30, 40 books on business. So I had all the qualifications needed to start my first business. Right? And that's what I did. And a lot of times in life, that magic of ignorance then leads you to be lucky. So I was pretty lucky the first time around. I made a ton of money very quickly. Within 6 months or so, I had a month where I earned more money than my mother was making a year. Think about that. Like insane, just insane. And so I did a few pretty successful things back in Germany, all small businesses, all bootstrapped, nothing to do with technology. And eventually I discovered that I had this idea for a tech company, and by that time, since I had like 2 small businesses that were successful, I was like, I'm qualified. I'm selling everything I have. I'm buying a one-way ticket to San Francisco. I'm going to start a tech company. I'm going to build the next Google, and I'm going to be Steve Jobs' best friend. And then within 18 months or so, Time Magazine Person of the Year. I don't want to like kill the suspense, but it didn't quite work out this way for me. Right? That first company was like a 5-year being punched in the face until I finally, was emotionally, spiritually, financially bankrupt and gave up. But I learned a ton during that time, and I kept learning a lot from books and my love of books, and I want to share a few things I learned that might be unique because of the way that I am and my brain works that might be useful to you guys. So one thing that was really beautiful about books was that my social circle was really negative, really like a tearing down, telling you what you can't do, what you won't do, pretty negative environment. So I was reading these books and they were pretty positive. And these books were written by people that were completely beyond the reach of my social circles. And I imagine, every book I was reading, I was imagining them being my friends, imagining them being in the room, telling me these stories, coaching me, mentoring me. Right? All these people that shared their story, their wisdom, their learnings with me. I created emotional relationships with them while reading these books. I didn't just read information or scan for information. I had experiences with them. It's funny, when my older brother was 8, he came home one day, and my aunt asked him if he has a girlfriend already. And he said, yeah, I have 3, and he's a really shy guy. And my aunt was like, what, you have 3 girlfriends? That can't be. Wow, look at you, player. Like, you're so amazing. And my mom picked up that something is wrong here, so she was like, Nick, do these girls know that they're your girlfriend? And he was like, no. And that's the same way I dealt with mentors. Like, I have people all the time send me emails, can you be my mentor? I'm like, why don't you just ask me the question you want and you just pretend I'm your mentor? That doesn't need to be any contract. You just keep sending me questions, keep interacting with me, and I'm going to be your mentor. We don't have to, formally agree to this. Right? And I thought that all these people were my mentors. All these people were now in my life teaching me, coaching me, inspiring me, and made a massive, massive difference to my life, obviously. So here's a few things I learned about reading that I want to share with you guys. And I know you people have read tons and tons of books. You're lovers of learning, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But let's share a few interesting things I learned about books and reading. So there's a few really bad habits a lot of people have, and I had established that for a really short period of time in some of these cases. The biggest, worst kind of hindrance for you to get everything out of a book experience that you can is having this inner need, because we've been programmed this way, to read books from A to Z, from cover to cover, and go sequentially. Right? I've met people that I'm like, have you read this book? And they're like, no. And then when I talked to them about it, I realized they read 85% of the book, but they couldn't finish it. So in their mind, they have not read anything. Right? They're like, no, I've never read this book. Right? We have this, like, maybe it's because school teaches us to read things and finish things. You start and finish tasks. So the way you've learned to read is probably something that happened really early in your life. You have reading habits. I would ask you to examine those. What feels good and what feels bad when reading? Are you a person that always has to finish the book, or you feel terrible, so you force yourself to read through terrible books, right? And you just punish yourself through the pain of finishing it and then not getting anything out of it? Or are you a person that learned to read books and take lots of notes? Like, maybe somebody's going to test us on this, right? Maybe there's going to be somebody that's going to ask me 13 multiple choice questions on this book. I need to prove that I can remember things. So you took all these notes and you read the notes and read them again and again and again, so you know everything. You can recite everything, right? All of us form certain habits, and some of them might be really useful, but a lot of them I find are really slowing people down. Reading from A to Z is not necessary. You could read a book, just one chapter of it, and you've read the book. Not all of it, but you read something. You just need to take one idea. This is one thing that DC says a lot when he talks about books. Just pick one idea out of the book. You already got something from it, right? You could read it from the end to the beginning. Have you ever done this? Who has ever done this? 1, 2, 3 people. Some people are here like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, here's my challenge to you. Whatever I say on stage today that seems like the weirdest, dumbest thing, try that first. Try that first, because if it feels natural and if it makes sense, it's already within your comfort zone. It's already within your universe of skills and experiences that you can relate to that seem like something, it's not that hard to do, I could do this. The things that seem crazy, give those a try. We do too little of that, right? So you don't have to finish a book. The other thing is, like, we're very judgmental about books. Oh, this is a good book, this was a bad book. No. There's no such thing as good and bad book. Or I read this, but I stopped in chapter 1 because there was one thing I didn't agree with. Really? Right? That's a very limiting way of approaching ideas and sharing and learning. Just because one fact in there was wrong or one fact in there was something you disagree with, you're like, I disagree with everything now. I challenge you, how many people do you know that you don't agree with everything they think in life and you still learn from them? Right? And the other thing is, it's very dangerous to think in good and bad. A lot of people ask me, Steli, can you give me the book that changed your life, that book about stocks? I'm like, no. That book is going to make you poor. It's going to make you lose all your money on the stock market. I don't want anybody to read that book. But that book was the right book at the right time for the right person. It changed my life. There were self-help books I read back then that today I think are the dumbest things ever. I would never tell anybody to read them, but they were mind-blowing books for me. They were the right book for the right person at the right time. I remember reading a self-help book that was like, first you need to change your friends, pick your friends, and people who are negative, they need to go and you need to find friends that are successful and you need to like design your friend. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. In my mind, friends is just the people you grew up with, and there's no selection process. I can't just say, I'm not going to be with you as a friend because you're negative or you're a failure. And how do I pick successful friends? It seemed like such a dumb idea. I was like, this is the... And then the other thing, another book that was like, well, you need to read a lot to be successful. So the first thing you should do is buy a book about reading. Learn to speed read. Learn reading techniques. And I was like, is this person serious? I'm going to read a book about reading? This is hilarious. I've read hundreds of books about reading. I've gotten to seminars about reading by now. But back where I was back then, I was like, this is so dumb, reading a book about reading. This is hilarious, right? But there were things in there like positive thinking. There was like a concept blew my mind. You know, positive thinking. I could just stand there and think positive things, and then I'll feel better. I might do better. I was like, wow, nobody ever told me this. There were things that seemed so simple to most people that were mind-blowing to me. So when you tell people this is a good or bad book, be very, very careful. I never tell people that a book is a bad book, because any book can change anybody's life at the right time if it's the right circumstance, right? And the other thing is like ego boost, right? For a while, I became so in love with reading books that reading books became a sport, right? I was like, I want to have this massive library. I want to build a building that's a library of all my books, right? Or when you have these challenges, people are like, I read one book a month this year, 12 books, boom, challenge accepted. And then the other person's like, well, I read a book a week this year. And the next person's like, I'm reading a book a minute, you know. And it's like people are comparing, you know, who has the biggest, you know, library of books, or the most. I guess it's so dumb. Like, there's not a quantity play, right? If you read 100 more books than me, doesn't mean you've learned more or you're better or smarter or anything like that, right? And it's not a sport. Again, these people oftentimes, I find that the intention you bring to reading changes the reading experience fundamentally. And if you just read to get through the book as quickly as possible, to get to the next book as quickly as possible, you don't get any. It's like saying, I want to be with 100 partners in life. What kind of a goal is that? Right? As quickly as possible, date somebody, and then, are we dating for one day? Cool, I need to go and date the next person, right? You're not going to be present to enjoy anything, to learn anything, to be part of anything, right? So be careful of that. I've now, like, any book I have, most books I have, I should be honest, I still have a bunch of books. But most books I have, I've given away. I've given away a whole library to schools. I gift books. I don't keep them. They're not they're not a Lambo. They're not a car. They're not some kind of a thing that I should look at all day and be like, look how smart I am. Look at this wall of books, right? All right, so let's talk about some experiments in terms of reading and learning through books that I've done that have been pretty powerful for me and a few other people that I've shared this with. The first thing, what I mentioned already is that, you know, there's no good and bad book, and you are as much part of the book reading experience as the book and content of the book itself. Here's one really amazing experience that I had, and I'm in a privileged position that I was so uneducated and so dumb that I have like some secret knowledge on some of this stuff. I remember buying a book from George Soros when I was 18. And it was something about democracy, and I don't know what. I don't remember the title anymore. But I remember I bought the book, and again, I forced myself at the beginning, from beginning to end. I didn't understand a single word, but I was like, I'm just going to force myself to read all these sentences. I'm sure I'm going to get smarter in the process. And I remember there were like most sentences I did not understand. Most of the vocabulary I did not understand. I was like, I don't understand any of this. This person is, of course, he's like a billionaire. He's writing in a way that's cryptic, like an alien language. I remember I was so wowed by that because I had read some books from other really successful people and I could understand some of it. But this book, nothing. And I remember a year or two later telling a friend of mine, oh my God, this George Soros guy, he writes books nobody understands. The words you have to go to school to. Like, it's so hilarious. Let me show you. And I went and picked up the book and I'm like, just any page, pick any page and give it to me. I'm like, look, this hilarious sentence. And I read it. It was like a total normal sentence. I'm like, keep reading. Nothing that spectacular. I'm like, well, this is probably a wrong chapter. And I did this for like 50 minutes until my friend left. And I just kept searching for the part of the book that's all cryptic. And I realized, no, the book was not that difficult. I was just that uneducated 2 years ago, so I didn't understand a single word. It was not the book, it was me that had changed. And one of my favorite things that I tell people when they ask me for book recommendations is telling them to go and reread a book they've already read. And this is a tip I want to share with you today. What I want you to do is think about a book that was really amazing that you've read and it's been longer than 5 years. I want you to put that on your reading list and reapproach that book. And I want you to think about a book that you tried to read longer than 5 years ago that you really hated. Not just something you forgot, something that you remember is like, this book was terrible. Just give it another try. You might have the same experiences, but you might have completely different experiences because as you and your life and the context of your life changes, so do the books that you read, so do the things that you pick up from those books. There are books that I've read 11 times, and at the 11th time, I could swear they printed a new chapter and brought it to my home when I was sleeping and putting it in there. I'm like, there's no way this was here. I read this book so many times, it's impossible that it was in the book before. Right? You are changing, so is your reading experience. The other thing that's funky and funny as an experiment to try is that how and where you read a book also influences the experience, right? So if you read just on the commute in the train, or if you always just read on vacation, all those things are cool, but try to switch it up a little bit. And one funky thing I do once in a while is reading a book out loud. Now, I know somebody in your head goes, oh God, I would never do this. You should do it then. Try it, and don't try to just read out loud. One funny thing I learned recently when I recorded an audiobook that I've written is that if you read out loud as if you would read yourself, it's going to be a really awkward experience. Perform the book. Read it as if there was an audience and you were performing a poem or something. It's an incredible experience. It changes the chemistry in your brain. It's a physical experience now all of a sudden, not just a mental one. It can change the way you feel about the book or the things you pick up about the book. And the other thing that I already mentioned is give books away. You know, I learned a lot from books that I was like, I'm not motivated to read this, but this person would. So I'm going to give this person this book as a gift, and then I'm going to tell them that in 2 months I'm going to check in and they should tell me what they learned, right? And I just learned from them. Right? Or I read a book, and then I had somebody else read a book, and then I was like, tell me everything you read. And the things that they picked up were completely different from the things that I picked up. You can learn from others and through others. But gifting books is one of the funnest things that I do, and one of the biggest love of my life is giving the love of reading, giving the love of books to others. So I've written now a bunch of books, 6 books to be precise, because once you learn so much, and once something like books in my life have changed the trajectory of my books so insanely, I feel compelled to share everything I learn, all the stories I go through with the world and with other people. And now I'm in this crazy position where, there are a few hundred people that have told me that my books have changed their life. Like, how? This is trippy to me. I'm like, I remember back when I was like this, walking out from the bookstore with my book under the jacket, reading the first book I've ever read was 16, and now I'm writing books and people read them. It impacts them and changes their life. It's incredible. So if you want to have all my stuff, just send me an email. The subject, books. I don't need a lot of details. And then Steli@close.io, I'm going to send you all my books for free. And potentially, if just one person picks up one idea that makes a difference, we already changed the world today together. So I know that you people, this was funny. I was like, who's going to come to a talk about somebody talking about that he likes to read books? Especially a crowd that loves to read themselves, I assume. They're a crowd full of learners. Like, what can I really share that you don't already know? Not much, as you've now noticed, but it's too late. I recognize and realize that you all probably love books already, right? And you probably read quite a bit already. The thing that I want to challenge you is not just to play around a little bit with your reading behavior and experiment and become a little bit more playful in the way that you read and the way that you think about books, but also to realize that as we grow older, a lot of people that I ask about the most impactful books in their life, we always refer to books that we've read a long time ago. Right? Usually when they were younger or earlier in their career. And that's because when you have that ignorance, the magical ignorance, you read books with a totally different mindset, and your intent and intention and mindset when reading something changes the experience fundamentally, right? So you read something that totally changed your world because you were going into the reading experience with that like beautiful, ignorant, youthful mindset of like, maybe this book is going to be the answer to all my problems. Right? Maybe I'm going to learn something magical. As we learn and read more, and as we experience more and grow older or more experienced over time, we get a bit more cynical, right? We get a bit more like, well, whatever, I read lots of books. I've been reading books for a long time. Oh, this is from somebody really important, but whatever. I've read a lot of books from really important people, and this chapter is something I don't agree with. F this book. I don't care about this. I already knew this. We become a bit more cynical in the way we approach books and reading. And what I would want to ask you to do or inspire you to do or to think about is to realize that most books that would have the potential to completely change your life are in your future and not your past, right? If you approach them in the right mindset, if you open up your mind for that, if you rediscover that love for books and for learning and for reading, and you fight that cynical self that comes with experience, and with time. And so look out for those books, look out for these magical experiences, and whenever you find them, share them with the world. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.